I turn, boom. Oh, there we go. Big. All right, you guys, today we're going to be doing Omote Gyaku. This is the outside wrist lock. So Omote Gyaku literally just means to like turn the wrist outside. And the way the grip is going to look on here, can I borrow? I've got my buddy Cody here, one of my students, and Cody's going to help out today. He volunteered to get wrist locked through all these videos. So it's going to be a great day for him. While we're doing the technique here, generally what I do is I kind of like grip the inside of his thumb, like where the meat of his thumb is right there. So I'll grip that part. And now my thumbs on his wrist here are gonna go right below his knuckles. And my thumbs can be parallel, like we're seeing here. See if you guys can see that. They can be parallel, or I can cross them here like this. Okay, also I have done the wrist lock where I've used my hand here, this part of my hand, to also aid in the lock as well. All right, so let's get on with Omote Gyaku. Let's do our first wrist lock. Okay, so for this first technique we're going to do, my opponent Cody's going to grab my gi. So he's got a hold of my jacket here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover his hand like this. So I kind of want to just get a feeling of what's going on here. There's a lot of things that he could be doing to me here with this grip. This might not be like a friendly jiu-jitsu match where we're just catching the gis and looking for takedowns. He could be grabbing my skin. He could be taking my jacket and pulling it and punching me. Go ahead and do, not too hard, but no, go ahead and hold the, here, let me hit you a little bit, like bam, bam, right, all that stuff. So he could be hitting me using this. He could be grabbing a hold of my skin. So I'm just gonna kind of cover his hand here a little bit so I can kind of feel what's going on there. And if I need to put some pressure on him right away, I can do that. Now I'm gonna step out at a 45-degree angle. Anytime I'm sitting here messing around with wrist locks and stuff, or any kind of submission hold, they can always be punching me with that hand. So we always have to be very aware of that hand, that's the danger. Actually, he can grab me as hard as he wants. Grab me really, really hard. It doesn't hurt when he grabs me really hard, but it's going to hurt when he punches me with that hand, right? So what I'm going to do here is, if you notice right now, he can hit me. Boom, he can clock me. If I step out to this little 45-degree angle here, I take away his ability to punch me out. It's just enough distance where I moving away from him. Now, from here, I make the wrist lock in the same way I showed you guys earlier. So in this case, I've got my thumbs crossing here and I'm turning and taking him all the way to the ground. Always controlling my opponent to the ground. I'm not gonna just let him go and drop him because I wanna be able to hold them in case I need to continue striking or continue doing joint locks or whatever I might need to do. So one thing we wanna think about is, in this situation, when these techniques were originally created, they were created for an armor-based martial arts. Samurais, ninjas, right? There was armor involved. And so if he was holding on to armor here, the armor's much harder, and because it's hard, as I crank this way, it's grinding into his hands and into his knuckles, and it makes it really easy. It's easier to get the grip off of me. If I have a lighter material like a jacket like this, I can still remove the grip. I may need to take a hand and catch my jacket and pull it out. Or even if he keeps the material, I can still take him down, even if he keeps the grip. So again, and following him down all the time. Now, with all of these concepts that you're about to see, one of the most important things that we're working on is angling, distance, and timing. And so I think for every martial artist in the world, it doesn't matter what style you're doing, angling, distance, and timing are some of the most important things to make a complete martial art. So as an example, from here, when we're here like this, angling and distance. If I try to do the technique from here, I'm getting punched in the face. Or if he had a weapon, worse than punch in the face, right? So I have to think, what angle do I need to be at? Where's my distance? Is my distance correct? And the timing also comes with feeling your opponent's energy and being able to take them down when you need to. So angling, distance, and timing. So now, that's a very traditional way to do Omote Gyaku, the outside wrist lock or the outside wrist reversal. There's a lot of ways that we can do this technique. So let's go over some of my favorites. One is from a wrist grab. So if my opponent grabs my wrist, I can bring my hand up. I bring my hand up by looking at my palm, and now I can make the same grip here, but I prefer to come way around and get the thumb, and then use my hand here to push down to make that technique. And just like all the other techniques, I'm not going to stand here while he punches me in the face, right? But once again, angling, distance, and timing. So in this technique, I can move myself at a 45-degree angle out this way, and being at a 45-degree angle to this side puts me really far away from that hand. What you saw earlier is if I come this way, I'm still out of reach of his hand as well. But once again, I can't just stay in one place and do this, okay? Now, let's say we're not thinking about a punch coming at us. We're thinking about a grappling match, whether it's a tournament-style jiu-jitsu or whether it's just a grappling match at your martial arts academy. These wrist locks and these wrist escapes happen all the time because we're always looking for wrist control. So if we're wrestling, we want this wrist control. Here, I've got a 2-on-1. I might have this hand first so I can get an arm drag. We're always looking for this wrist controls. So while we're in here grappling and he gets my wrist, my life just got really easy. Oh, I can go right for that lock now. So once again, he gets my wrist. I can just go right for that lock. You catch that a few times on people, they're not going to want to grab your wrists anymore. They're going to start to think, man, I don't know if I want to try to get wrist control on this person. Now, another thing is if someone grabs the back of your head. So we're here like this and he's got the back of my head. This is real common. And this is the way I've used this technique probably more than any other way, is when we're here and we're tied up like we're grappling or we're wrestling, I just move my head to the outside and I catch his wrist here. Let's show that again. So let's come over to this side. We're here. I move my head here, and now I have the wrist. A lot of times for this one, I'll combine an elbow lock. I can bite down on his arm and lift his arm up, and if he starts to bend his arm, that puts me into the wrist lock position. Speaking of them bending their arm, and it puts me into the wrist lock position, or puts him into it, we see that with the standard one too. So if we're here like this, and I'm coming here, and I'm trying to pull, but he's bending his arm, no problem. Just drop him straight down from there. Okay, all right, so here we go. Just like that. So that's the outside wrist lock. So now what we're gonna do is it doesn't matter how you apply the wrist lock. It doesn't matter if they're grabbing a hold of your gi or some kind of clothing material here, if they have your wrist, if they have the back of your head. When we take them down to the ground, we're gonna finish them by applying the same move, but the ground is gonna become an anchor where they can't move. So right now when I have him, because he's moving, he won't hurt anymore because he takes the pressure away by just moving to the ground. For example, if I'm turning and he tries to stay up, well, you can try it on me. We'll give your wrist a break, Cody. So if he tries it on me and I try to turn my wrist back that way, it hurts. So what happens is people will go to the ground to take the pressure away. But once we're on the ground, we're just going to finish them using the same technique. Now that I have my opponent on the ground will immobilize them, right? So the ground, it stabilizes a person, it immobilizes them, and it anchors them. So from here, I can continue applying the pressure with the lock really easily. I'll take my knee here, keeping it against his body, and I'll slide it over towards his bicep, and I'll just continue the rotation of the wrist, and he won't have anywhere to go. There we go. Sorry, buddy. I'm gonna add momentum when I have the arm here like this. I'm gonna keep the elbow against my body. So I step around them, I keep the elbow against my body like I'm gonna break his elbow. And as I go for this elbow lock, it makes him follow me. When he follows me, I can then hit the wrist lock. Now, hey guys, I had a comment on YouTube. Someone, you know who Steven Seagal is? Somebody said that I looked like Steven Seagal's cousin doing this. Right? I don't want to hear any of those comments this time, you guys. So, I love this move. Even if I look like Steven Seagal's cousin, I love this technique. It's a cool move. We're going to do this one off of a punch. We'll kind of show that momentum. So he's going to do a straight punch at me. I move, I turn, boom. Oh, there we go. Big throw on that one. So there's a lot of momentum with this wrist lock throw, so that's why I call it the momentum wrist lock. There's a different name for it, a Japanese name. So here we go. So let's do it from this side. So from here, there's a lot of different ways we could practice. I could just stand like this, so when the punch comes, I can block and move in at a 45-degree angle. He could step forward with his punch. He could stand there. It almost doesn't matter, but the way we're going to apply the move again is from here, I'm coming in. So this is what I'm doing. I'm coming in and I'm applying pressure on his elbow. This is where people don't see how practical this move can be. When I apply pressure on his elbow, he may bend his arm, and then I come back with Omote Gyaku, the outside wrist reversal, or I can make him follow me, and that's when I hit the wrist lock. Now for the last technique that we're going to do with Omote Gyaku is we're actually going to do a sword disarm. And the sword disarm could be with any weapon. It could be with any object that's like a sword, right? So this is for another video, but I got attacked with a guy with a shovel a couple weeks ago. Do you know the story?
I believe so.
Yeah, dude attacked me with a shovel. And when he had the shovel coming at me, I was like, dang, that's just like a samurai sword, but not as sharp, right? So we do this training a lot with like rubber knives or wooden knives in class, but we were going to use a samurai sword today. We're actually using a ninjutsu sword, and Cody's been wanting to use the sword, and the sword is razor sharp. So it's a live sword, it's a live blade, it's razor sharp, so we got to be extra careful. Also, I want to point out that I don't know for sure, but I have enough jiu-jitsu curriculums memorized, that I believe that this outside wrist lock, Omote Gyaku, could be one of the very first jiu-jitsu techniques ever recorded. It has to be, because if we think of what is jiu-jitsu, it's samurais. They lost their swords on the battlefield. They had to defend themselves. The movements were much slower because they had big armor on, and so they were able to sometimes catch those swords and apply these moves like Omote Gyaku or a Gyaku. And so I think it's some of the very first techniques ever recorded in the history of jiu-jitsu was actually this technique, and that was used against a samurai sword. I'm pretty sure. I would love to hear a comment on that. If somebody disagrees or agrees with me, I would love to hear that. So here we are. Let's start with the sword up. We'll go ahead and bow, make it official. So let's go ahead and bring the sword up overhead. So he's going to have his sword up overhead, and when he comes and swings down at my head, I'm going to step either in at a 45-degree angle, or I'm going to just kind of open myself up here like this. Now, unlike a lot of the self-defense we do, I'm not going to put my hands out like a lot of our self-defense is like, yo, man, just chill. Yo, Cody, you got a sword? Just chill. I'm going to get my hands cut off here, right? So my hands stay in. I could, if I want to talk to him, I could be here. Hey, man. Now, if somebody attacks you with a samurai sword in real life, you can probably avoid that situation by just, running away or whatever. But, the shovel situation, your hands can be here. Hey, man, dude, like, whatever, dude, we don't need to fight or whatever, but he comes forward, he walks at me, I'm going to move, and now I'm in the same position here like we were in the previous videos. So now I have my thumbs on his knuckles, and I turn him here, and I can make the same technique. Take him all the way to the ground. I can then apply the pressure on the sword here to his wrist, and now, there we go. Okay, here you go, Cody. Now I also don't have to take him all the way to the ground to apply a disarm using Omote Gyaku. So when the sword comes at me, I can turn here. One thing I can do is I don't even want to do this because the sword is live, but I can bring the sword to his throat and cut him in the throat here as I'm taking him down. Now I can continue the turn, and there's going to be an area of the sword here. Let's move this to the camera here a little bit. There's an area of the sword right here where he's got a one hand there, and here there's an opening. I can grab my hand in that opening, and by pushing, I can release the sword and disarm him. So we don't have to go all the way to the ground with this. All right, you guys, so that is one of my favorite submissions in the martial arts, Omote Gyaku, the outside wrist reverse.